All right, let's look at the homework 3.2, problem number 4. All right, so let's take the derivative of this function here. All right, so since we have a quotient, so we're going to use a quotient rule. But if you pay attention to the numerator, numerator is the product, so we have to use the product rule as well. All right, so let's do that. All right, so you have f prime of x is equal to. Right, so first we just have to square the bottom. So quantity x to the 9th power plus e to the x, and we're going to square that. Right. Then we're going to take the derivative of the top. So when you take the derivative of the top, we have to use the product rule because you have this is the first guy times the second guy. Right, so derivative of the first guy is a 9x to the 8th times second guy is e to the x, plus first guy is x to the 9th, and times the derivative of e to the x is e to the x again, right? Then multiply by denominator, which is x to the 9th power, plus e to the x, right? Minus, we have a top guy is x to the 9th power, e to the x, and multiply by derivative of the bottom, which is going to be 9x to the 8th plus derivative of e to the x is e to the x again. Right? So now we're done with the derivative. Right? But what we're going to do is I'm going to pull out common factors. Right? So let's see if we can see a common factor here. Right? So we see that here you have e to the x and e to the x here. So we can pull out the e to the x from the first term, right? Then we have e to the x here in the second term as well. So common factor was one of the common factors e to the x. So put that there. Right, and the denominator stays the same, so I'm just going to copy the denominator here. Right. All right, then what else is in common? You can see that everyone here has at least x to the 8th in it, and here we have x to the 8th. So I'm going to also pull out the x to the 8th power. Right, let's see what's left over. Right, so we're going to have. Right, so we pulled out x to the 8th power from here and e to the x, so you have a 9 left over, right? And if you pull out the e to the x and the e to the x, so there's going to be another x left over, so I'm going to plus x. And then we have x to the 9th plus e to the x, that's unchanged. And here, we have, if you pull out x to the 8th from x to the 9th, so you have another x left over. And then we still have 9x to the 8th plus e to the x, right? So we just pulled out the common factor x to the 8th and e to the x. All right, then we just have to clean up the rest of it here. So we have, right, denominator stays the same, so x to the 9th plus e to the x squared, right? I like having x to the 8th in front of e to the x, so I'm going to put that there, so e to the x. All right, here, I'm going to have just distributing, so distribute 9 to x to the 9th and e to the x. So you have a 9x to the 9th plus 9 times e to the x. Right, then if you distribute x to the 9th and e to the x, we're going to have x to the 10th power plus x e to the x. Right, then we're going to subtract. Right, so if you distribute x to 9x to the 8th would be 9 x to the 9th power. And then we're going to distribute, I guess, negative x to e to the x would be negative x e to the x, right? So we can cancel. There's a 9x to the 9th minus 9x to the 9th, x e to the x minus x e to the x, right? So what's left is going to be, right, so we have x to the 8th power, e to the x, and what's left is 9 e to the x plus x to the 10th power, right? Because those are the only two terms left. Everyone else is canceled out. Right, then denominator is, right, x to the 9th plus e to the x squared. Right, let's type it in. All right, so what we got was x to the 8th power times e to the x times quantity 9 e to the x plus x to the 10th power, and then a whole thing divided by quantity x to the 9th plus e to the x raised it to the 2nd power. All right, let's check the answer. All right, it came back and looks like we got this one correctly. All right, that's it. I hope that this was clear.